We are a little bit late because the three talks are sort of bundled together. I'm going to talk a little bit about production systems and what in tech mostly bother us people which are heavily involved with production on a day-to-day basis. And then later I'll try to go into a little bit details why we need more modern production systems, and then further down the line, Zongals will show you some of the stuff that we're doing to get to that point. And in fact, the three talks are sort of intertwined, and I had a lot of problems explaining to Jerzy how they were different and how they were ordered. It was probably a very good thing that he put it all together without even asking me.
Yeah, you asked me them to say, to put them one before the other and so on the order. I think it was preserved coming out from out of your
Yes. No, it was good. And it is also not as much as a talk as it is a conversation with people that work on day-to-day development with tech. So please stop me at any time. The first thing I want to do is to really define what I mean by a production suite. Knuth went all the way to produce this most beautiful software I have ever seen, and which produces a manuscript which is really, really nice. But then he stopped there, and things continue to evolve, and Massinet and Ventroblat and Crossref and all this other material showed up after that, PDF and so forth. And we had to sort of keep evolving and be able to produce the products that will be able to be sent to printers later on and be dealt effectively by electronic devices like Kindles, iPads, and so forth. And that's where the problem resides. We have to pretty much go on that by ourselves because the tech community develops up to the point of the production of the manuscript, but that's where it stops. What does a production environment do? So a production environment, accepts the manuscript, that comes in, and it literally checks for all those things that Lolita went on during her talk. These guys that write a paper, and two guys together. First one writes the first chapter, the second one writes the second and third, and the first one likes pie, the second one likes bar pie, and it is stitched together at the last minute and passed over to the publisher, and the publisher has to deal with it. Being able to recognize those things, being able to deal with it effectively without bothering the client as much is a very important issue. And so her list is already pretty big. But then we also have to do things like treating bibliographers automatically, extract the bibliography out of a paper, out of a book, build a bib file automatically from that BBL file, link it to Massinet, link it to Ventroblat, link it to Crossref, and be able to produce a file, an electronic file that would be very useful for somebody reading that book later down the line. So this is what I really mean by an editorial flow tool. I wrote my first one when at the beginning of the 2000s, and it was called Edit Flow, and this is circa 2000. And soon after that, I joined MSP, and I worked with them for about 7.5 years, in which this was further developed. And this was literally the alpha version of this particular beginner's tool. And then within MSP, we developed it about 2010. We developed what I call the beta version of this tool. This beta version, this first one was written in Perl, and the second one was sort of transferred to PHP at that time. And it is today used by 18 of the top 20 nonprofit math journals of the world, including all the journals of the AMS and all the journals of the London Math Society and a bunch of other nonprofit journals around the world. I left MSB a few years ago and went on to develop what I call the version 1 of this for a company in India which should remain anonymous. And we did a version 1 because they want to have the same experience of that we have inside MSP, and because they have heard from so many authors and from so many editors, and they want to sort of replicate that experience inside the company. And now I think after this experience, it took like about 4 months, 8 engineers together. I think I know what to do in order to build the next one. And my plan it is to write the next one. We're doing it right now, which is going to be the version 2, and it's being built on Ruby, and it's going to be open source. Do you have a website for it? Yes. So the idea is to be able to provide some support for the people which are already using the tool. We're going to do it sort of a drop-in solution for the people which are already using it on top of the same databases and same functionality, but with way more functionality and a little bit more modernity built into it. So for that, when we start tackling these issues, we start coming up with, and by the way, the first use of this and some of the funding which is coming from the source is coming from the ICM, which is the International Congress of Mathematicians 2018 in Rio. So that's going to be the first time it's going to be used to effectively produce one of those books. The ICM has in between 6,000 and 8,000 submissions. And so it needs to be dealt with in a more automatic fashion. And in fact, the Congress has the custom of not rejecting anyone, separating a few people for invited lectures and leaving the rest for short communications. So those 8,000 submissions will probably have to be dealt with for short communications. So it's a huge job, and you need some automated tools to do that.
Talk to folks.
The other thing that's, one other principle that's really driving this is that we want to get out of the DVIPS jacket. And in order to be able to easily use typography, in order to be able to easily do a few other things that what TeX allows us to do and the ZTeX allows us to do. And in that process, we are faced with many, many, many problems. And I'll try to describe this, I'll try to go one by one of them in a few minutes. The other thing I wanted to tell you is, the inspiration for this lecture came out of one of the questions that Carl Burry asked me once, which we were in a conversation a few years ago back in Oregon, and he said, if Irytacze produces outputs which are so beautiful, why it's not more widely used to produce books in general? And at the time I didn't have an answer for him, and I thought about it very hard. And if you think a bit, there are some reasons why. There are, people which are born in the new generation are point and clickers. So there isn't much point and click going on inside TeX. And so it's natural to be drawn to the world of Orc Express and InDesign, which are literally the only other options that you have in order to produce a good-looking book in the world right now. And in fact, Quark Express, a piece of the market right now is, I heard it's less than 2%. So InDesign has swallowed the market for book production almost entirely, and we're sharing the rest with Quark Express. The reasons for, I do not agree that we are, that the use of tech is not widely accepted. And I think in fact that the use of tech is increasing, even percent-wise, over time. And right now, with solutions like Pandoc and iBooks Author and Bookdown, RStudio Bookdown, and so forth, tech is being more and more used. I saw an example of that on one of the mailing lists that I belong to, with one guy claiming that he had found a new way to go from HTML to PDF directly and not having to use Pandoc to do this translation. And then the next question that came after that is, somebody asked, did you implement the microtypography extensions? and then he said, what is that? I used some Python library, PDF library to do it. Well, as soon as microtypography was explained, he abandoned his project and continued to use Pandoc. So, this really brings us to one of the most important pieces of LaTeX for production environment right now. Microtypography is probably one of the most beautiful packages ever written in tech. And it saves production people a tremendous amount of time by decreasing the line breaks and the page breaks exponentially, and also introduces a certain beauty into the manuscript, which was only available in the first half of the 20th century.
By hand.
Yes, done by hand, because the guys that used the linotypes, they were the ones that used it well. As soon as the linotype reached the middle of the line, they were already started making calculations in their heads on what kind of size of W, what kind of size of J's and L's would fit properly so that you would have a right justification. And not having to throw away the lead and have to retype everything again. That was completely obliterated by, I guess, the beginning of the typewriter. And the wide use of typewriter in order to produce books. And you can see that there's very clearly there's a collection, a mathematical collection called Lecture Notes in Mathematics. In my original country, it's yellow in color, and we call it yellow fever. And it sort of, it spans almost 75 years right now, and you can see a history of typography going through the volumes of the whole thing. And in the end of the 60s, it got so bad, that there were even some of them that people dropped the typewriter and started, just wrote it by hand. Because they weren't willing to deal with what kind of stuff Springer was requiring at that time. So microtypography is the microtypographic extension is one of the very, very important issues for us. And then when you go to something like this table here, you can see that's a real problem if you want to use Z-tag. This red marks in here are bad, and that is pushing us more and more to move over to Z-tag. And we may choose to do that despite of the fact that we have to put up with the processing time. But LuaTeX is offering so much more when you sum it all at the end of the day. That might be the solution. I would be willing to think otherwise if this last line here were a little bit more full of greens, as opposed to the situation that is right now. I do not fully understand what the issues are in there. Do you?
Yes, as
Sure.
workforce.
Is this just plain workforce?
Yeah, you don't have anyone working on it. I mean, I'm formally the maintainer of ZTech, but to be honest, I haven't done anything yet. No, but to be perfectly honest, I don't have the time right now, and also I lack some of the knowledge. Khaled Hosni before me was very active, but he completely, walked away, saying, and then, I mean, to his credit, he did a lot of good things. But then he said, okay, I don't have time anymore, and I think he was sort of drafted into the army or whatever.
If you talk about speed, because it comes up frequently, what are you talking about? What is the difference in speed in your case?
What difference of what?
Of speed between LuaTeX and ZTech? If you talk about speed, what is the issue?
If we're talking about microtopography extensions?
Speed.
LuaTeX and ZTech.
Yeah.
You see the difference in here? In the production of PDF, we do have expansion, and there's none of it. And there are indications from the author of the microtype package that this is going to continue in LuaTeX a little bit further, while we have this has been installed in here for many years now. Isn't that correct?
The question was what you see in terms of speed.
What's the difference in speed?
Oh, the speed difference. Oh, so sorry. I didn't understand the word speed. It's definitely substantially slow.
What is substantial?
Oh, by us, but processing a book, we see a difference about a factor of 4 or 5 times more. Sometimes 10 times more.
10 times?
10, yeah.
But so then you have an implementation issue. Because in practice, the processing speed, if I do tests between ZTech and LuaTeX, is not, there's hardly any difference. There's a difference with speed, yes,
But I think
8-bit engine, whatever.
Hans, I think it's all the Lua code that is slower.
50% of context is Lua code. 50.
Well, yeah, maybe in context it's fine, but with later, it's definitely
So then it's
observed.
implementation, so it's an implementation issue. That determines your choice. That's the only thing.
So you're saying there is an implementation issue going on
I think
with TeX Live?
or maybe in your place where you
With
No,
later.
we're using TeX Live everywhere. And, on laptops, on people that do editorial work at home.
You should then try to identify, I think that's always the case, you should try to identify the bottleneck and look why that's a bottleneck.
Wow.
Whole latex.
I always thought that I would have to take Lua out of LuaTeX in order to see any speed improvement in there. So it's maybe something to look at. A little bit how they do.
We use plain tech, LuaTeX. Plain it is very fast.
Yeah, that's what.
So my experience with waiting in LuaTeX is that the font loader, this OGF, Lua, whatever, is horribly slow.
I think that's
Everything
the
else
issue,
should be
yeah.
fine. But if you use this OGF, whatever,
Open time?
the Lua implementation for the OpenType font loader, this takes a long time.
No,
So,
No.
listen. What would you consider a normal speed? I can do 500 pages per second
No, we can't do 500 pages per second.
on just text running through the system. You take a relatively simple paragraph, you run it entity, let's say 1,000, 2,000 instances.
I want to buy the same laptops you buy.
No, this one is 5 years
You
old.
have my old one,
You have our
10 years
top
old and running many pages a second.
If I have a complex document, the LuaTeX speed for me, the Metafund manual, you can, some people have like this thing, yeah? I can run it in 15 seconds, and it's 2000 meta postgraph if you're loading something between 15 and 20 big fonts, 450 pages full color. 15 seconds and 15 seconds with dual text, 18 seconds with normal dual text.
So Zoom is bringing up something here that, you know, we in general we deal with a lot of graphics. Would that have any impact, any negative impact in any way?
But okay.
All right.
I'm sorry. Some time ago, I made tests. I just compiled the TeX book. You know, you can compile TeX book for speed comparisons. And this is as clean code as possible explained. And there was something like not 10 times, but 2 times difference between ZTeX and LoaTeX. ZTeX was faster, about 2 times with the TeX book code. It was quite some time ago. The code was from TeX Live, so this was
calculating that gets trickier and trickier. The TeX book on my machine compiles within a second. So what is the speed gain?
And another data point. It was on a tablet, so it was basically I compiled both on a phone.
Yes, but let's say that the startup time in this case is half a second for one engine and 3/4 of a second for the other.
No, it was several seconds. It was like 10 seconds, 20 seconds. But there is time difference.
Let me say that this is just okay. You know? the idea is to have a conversation. My second very big peeve is with Babel and Paulo de Ney Souza, because we should have a way to have a cross feeding between the 2 projects if the 2 projects are continuing all the way to the end. As far as I can see, they are. One can replace the other with almost no loss. But the 2 projects continue, which is good. But if we can build a bridge to take the translations out of Polyglossa and feed it into Babel and vice versa, that'll be a really awesome thing for us. And we're building this right now. We're building a tool that will allow somebody that wants to do a Hindi translation to be able to pull the English, some other language that he knows, and to get into their translation for Bibliothèque, for Babel, for Polyglossa, and submit it on that.
Look, this is a conversation that I think you and me should have, you know, after the talks, because, as you know, I really want to do something about it. It's ridiculous. I mean,
Javier has sort of woken up after some time of hibernation.
Yeah, well, he does what everyone does. You know, he meets deadlines, and obviously that's
the third one on my list is hyperref. You will be really extremely clean if you could build PDF files and not have to manipulate PDF files, because PDF files are not really made to be manipulated in any way once they're ready. They're supposed to be final products, almost. And in hyperref right now, it has gotten better over the years, but right now, loading and not loading it will change the pagination of a book substantially. Will change the pagination, you know, line breaks and so forth. Haiku is a very interesting guy. He has like postings on Stack Exchange, which commands like 600 votes, you know, very high. Every time we talk about hyperref change pagination, he gets negative points, like -6, -10. In fact, it was the first time that I discovered that somebody could have a negative point for an answer on Stack Exchange. And he maintains it, that's not fixable. And I can't quite believe it, because InDesign does it. And introduces links and non-links on PDF files without changing the pagination whatsoever.
But is it a draft mode for a hyperref?
Yes.
Now, I don't know exactly what it does, but the only thing that it does is give the same pagination as when it's active.
No, it doesn't. We build a testing sequence on top of that. I mean, the only solution that we have right now that I have heard that effectively does things is to, follow links blank and go on the PDF file and do something with the PDF file. I mean, you remember that we have to have a PDF file that passes PDFX, because printers. Printers require a lot of things that some of the times you can't provide, and things that they don't really need at all, but that in case something went wrong, they can blame you. Oh, I asked you to send me PDFX level such, you didn't. That's why this print run is messed up. It's your job. Pay me. And so we need to make PDF files which are compliant at almost every level. And this brings us to the issue, dear President, of PDFX and PDFA and so forth. So I would like to learn. Taco told me that this is fixable. And I'm going to try to spend some time over the next few months trying to understand what is and how deep it is, so that I can deal with it. My next peeve is that we don't, as a community, use GitHub to do all something. And I understand. Both Frank and our point of view is that we don't have a workforce, and whoever is willing to do the job, we should embrace and accept whatever methods this person has. But still, it shouldn't keep us from giving incentives for this project to move over. This discussion with Heiko about hyperref is all over Stack Exchange in an unorganized fashion, and every 4 months he has to repeat the whole thing for somebody else, or somebody has to link to an answer that's already linking to another answer, which is already linking to the answer, or to his original answer, and so forth. If we had, and they do that on purpose, there's sort of a chain that goes like this, because all the answers are there, and then you have to read like 5, 6 before you get to the real thing. It would be really nice if we could give an extra incentive for people to do this. If Jeff, for example, not Jeff, Javier, were conducting the furthering of Babel on GitHub, he would get a lot of help. He would get a lot more help than doing him himself and having people emailing him and so forth. It's sort of project that's glamorous.
Good example of why some of those things are complicated. This is living in an environment which has a complete environment of its own, which is the testing suite of LaTeX and everything going around. We have LaTeX 3 development on GitHub, but we are having LaTeX 2e on SV, and for good reasons. No way. No way without paying me half a year of work. Do that, fine.
Just the transition is very.
This is a big environment like the one you're trying to build or change.
Sure.
And you can't change a
No.
That's an example of why I said be careful about.
I understand that something like LaTeX 3, which I.
No, 2e.
I understand.
I would like to